Good morning, my humanities warriors. I am sitting here in quarantine, but it's definitely my responsibility to give you some learning. So, here we go. Listen, I've really had you guys doing exercises leading up to an analysis method. I'm going to give you a document in Blackboard that sort of runs this down. Okay, so take notes, but also refer to that document that sort of steps you through this process, because what we want to do is use the language of story, which was the whole point of the elements of story. All right, everything is a story, even things that are not framed as a story. So we're going to talk about things that are intentionally, hey, here's a story, it's a novel, it's a short story. Then you have the things like the Jill Bolte Taylor that is a TED Talk, right? It's a lecture. But is she telling a story? Absolutely. What else tells a story? You tell a story about yourself, right? And this is why I had you do the Who Am I? These are all pieces to make you realize where it is that you speak from. The entire point of practical humanities, from my standpoint, is to enable students to have a voice and to understand that that voice, your unique voice, the one that only you have, has a purpose and has power. So I want to start by just asking you a few questions. And I want you to go ahead and jot the answers down, just in free form. Okay, and have these ready. So first of all, I noticed some trends. For those of you who handed in the elements of story assignment, where you were to go and comment on 3 elements from each story and then make an analysis, I definitely notice a trend. We are very concerned with plot, seem to be very concerned with setting, and you're making honest attempts to mine a theme out of these. But mostly we're sticking with the more descriptive elements, things that are absolutely there in the story. But think about your response, or what your response would have been if I don't have your work yet. What elements are you drawn to? Did you go to character? Did you go to setting? What are you looking at? It seems that we're not necessarily ready for any of the extra narrative elements, meaning the things that are outside the story, except for maybe context, right? And context is probably one of the more important things you're going to look at. If there was one phrase, and write this down, if there was one phrase I would want you to leave the humanities with, it is the context is decisive. I'll wait for you to write that down. One more time. The context is decisive. We all use language differently. We relate historically differently to, for instance, different kinds of characters. I'll give you an example. In mythology, in really pre-20th century storytelling, there is a type of hero called the tyrant hero. Now, the tyrant hero brings a gift to their society. That gift is order, right? Order over just about anything. Now, in the ancient world, this was an issue of safety, right? We can see in that context that if you have order, if you have something that is knowable, then it gives a sense of comfort. There was a real-life tyrant hero or someone who was seen, perhaps at the time, as a hero, who offered a great deal of order to a country that was in political turmoil, was in economic turmoil following World War I. And it was in this context that Adolf Hitler created the Third Reich, rose to power, and was able to get his followers to, well, we know what happened historically, to perpetrate great crimes against humanity. So post-Hitler, the tyrant hero is pretty much ruined for everyone until we get to the anti-hero, which sort of skews that. Okay, this is another example. In a world where it is not we're over here and neighboring countries are over there and our cultures aren't touching and there are clear lines drawn, the rise of the American anti-hero signals a period of time when we are looking at ourselves and viewing ourselves as highly flawed. There's a lot of gray area, and it's reflected in the storytelling. All right? So context is absolutely one of those things we want to keep our eye on. Not many of you went there in the work, which is fine. What I want you to write down now are what elements of story that you can remember, all right, from the reading, are you drawn to? Now, those elements show you what your way in to a story is. If you are relating the character